So I'm going to do a little overview of this Gemling Stat Stacker that I've been playing. He's a lot of fun. He's been able to destroy pretty much all of the content in the game that I have put him against so far. These are my stats. Got almost 400 strength, 4,500 dexterity, and almost 700 intelligence. And that's without an Ascendancy. I've been unfortunately not lucky enough to find an Ascendancy, and their price point this particular league has been out of control. So getting an Ascendancy is nearly out of question. And even if I was to get an Ascendancy, I would have to rework some of my gear that I am currently sitting on, because the amulet that I'm rocking right now has spirit on it. And the spirit I do like. I mean, I could technically avoid it, but at the same time, if you want to run both your heralds that I'm running in this build, you need the extra spirit in order to be able to run Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. So if I was to get Ascendancy, I would lose the spirit, which I could probably recover by putting, I could take out one of my attack speeds in my Pillar of Cage God. I have 2 attack speed, the soul core of Quipolato. I could replace those with the soul core of Azkapa, and each soul core of Azkapa in your weapon gives you 15 spirit. If you put it in your armor, like this one says right here, it gives you 10% to rarity. So if assuming I could get that, I would have to change a couple of things up. My resistances would have to change. They'd have to tweak. I'd end up tweaking a lot of my gear. But as it sits right now, I'm not running an Ascendancy build stat stacker just because I cannot afford it. So what I do have, I have your standard 4 items, 5 items that you need for a stat stacking Gemling. You need a Pillar of Cage God in some form. I was lucky enough to actually corrupt this one with the 2%, or the 12%, sorry, increase to strength. I didn't have to buy it, and that was like 2 months ago that I actually corrupted one myself, and it got a lucky corruption. The Hand of Wisdom in action, just standard Hands of Wisdom, decent rolls. It didn't come with a 4% attack speed, which would have been nice, but I did get the extra socket on mine so that I can at least put a couple things in there. I threw Chaos Resistance nodes in there, or Takati, the soul core of Takati, so I have a little bit more Chaos Res via my gloves. The other item you would normally use is Black Sun Crest. You have a variety of different helmets you can use, but this particular helmet has, if rolled well, as you see it, normally before a corruption can increase or decrease it, you would get 15% on strength, int, and dex. Mine's okay. I could probably afford a better pair, or a better set. But I do like the corruption that I got on this one, 29% increased mana regen, because mana in this build, like the way the build is designed, it runs off of mind over matter. So your mana is your health pool. It's your primary first line of defense. So before they even get into your health node or your health bar, they will be eating mana. So you want ways in order to get your mana back quicker. So I ended up having a corruption on this one that tends to help. The other item that's pretty much necessary just so you have your basic resistances and your stats is a Moriori Invictus. And once again, these get into the hundreds of divines if you get the better ones, like 200 divines. I think it's still the current price for a 5-socket attribute elemental res. So I can't afford that, so I've got the 4, but it still works just fine. I have 5% to attributes and 10% to reses, so at least in this regard, these are as high as they can go, unless the corruption on it itself was to change that. And as you can see, I have 18% chaos resistance is the corruption that I got on this set of armor. So I'm getting chaos res here, so I don't have to worry about other areas of the build. And I have 4 soul cores of Sequatl. so that I'm getting solid 20% all resistance via the armor set. The last item that normally is used in the build would be the Ingenuity Belt. They're a dime a dozen. You can get a million different kinds of these because it's so late in the league. I could probably look for something that's a little bit higher than a 72% bonus. It rolls from a 40% to an 80%, as you see here. So mine was rolled well, and the corruption that came on mine is, in my book, it was absolutely necessary. It may be different with other people, but my corruption is 24% increased evasion, because I desperately needed evasion, because I was lacking evasion, and evasion is one of your primary lines of defense of just not getting hit. As far as the boots, ring, and amulet, those are items that, as building the gear, your particular build, you can have all sorts of different rings and amulets and or boots. But ones I have are stat stacking with a little bit of resistance and quite a bit of damage on this ring. And I know a lot of other build guides that would focus on talking about your builds, nobody mentions, from what I've seen myself anyway, nobody mentions accuracy rating. This ring is stacked with accuracy rating, which, if you were to look at what accuracy rating does, main hand accuracy rating is 14,802. If you read what it says it does, it is used for the target to attack, checked against target's evasion to determine the hit chance. So basically, the more accuracy rating you have on your weapon, the more chance you are going to hit that target. You want it to be at 100% if possible. It's a big thing. A lot of people they completely disregard the accuracy rating. I don't know what this flickering is. It's been in the game for a couple of days now. It needs to change. But as you see here, damage is estimated main hand chance to hit with 2 meters is 100% chance. So I have plenty of accuracy rating to attack. Accuracy rating also increases the speed of your attack. I'm at 11.9 attacks per second with the main hit. Obviously, you can click these and you can look at what they would change to if you're, flipping through them. Third strike, fourth strike, normal strikes, and what they're going to do. I'm using Tempest Flurry for my main hit, which is pretty common with what a lot of people are using in a stat stacking Gemling. I mean, not all people are using Tempest Flurry. Some people are using Ice Strike. But Tempest Flurry tends to be the common behind a lot of the builds. So you would pair up Tempest Flurry with Tempest Spell. You get your 4 strikes with Tempest Flurry, and then when you're on any boss, you can hit them with the bell. I also pair it with a weapon change. So I'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get back to Hand Up Shield. I'm going to go back to my gear real quick. Go back to the other ring here. It has Strength Intelligence and some all-res. And then it has increased lightning damage and some chaos resistance. Because that's how I'm getting the majority of my chaos res is from these couple items right here. The boots. The boots are movement speed, evasion, energy shield, maximum mana because maximum mana is your life. And then you have some stats and some stun threshold. These boots were like 20 divine just a couple days ago. So I'm sure were considerably higher, more expensive prior, but prices have came down a little bit as the league has moved on. And they are corrupted with a 22 to cold resistance. Another stat that I needed for my build. Everybody's builds are slightly different in this game because there's no piece of gear that's exactly the same unless you're mirror copying builds. But that's obviously extremely expensive. A little bit of coffee. I have a decent mana flask and a decent health flask. Health flask you almost never need in this build. It's more for those rare circumstances where you actually do take health damage in the sense of like maybe a Burning Grounds map where you had just a little bit trickle through, like you took a big hit and you're on burning ground, and it ate through all of your mana, which your mana is going to be regenerating quite often, quickly. Especially when I get to the tree. I'll go into that in just a second. But you will need this once in a while because as it sits, this build has absolutely 0 life regeneration. There isn't a single, not even one piece of gear is giving me life regen. So if you were to take health damage, your health is going to stay there unless you have both your potion. But obviously most people are going to have this because it's part of the main game. The Melting Maelstrom Mana Flask is the target Mana Flask that pretty much every build in the game is looking for, because when it is used, it will completely fill your entire, recover all mana when used. So it can roll from 200 to 235, I think it is, or 200 to 250 increased duration. The duration does not necessarily matter. The duration is more about this line that says every 3 seconds during effect, you deal 50% of mana spent as chaos damage. That's the duration factor. As far as why people use this mana flask, it's an instant hit for life. So if you're fighting a boss and you get chunked for a couple thousand damage, in this sense your mana pool, you can spam you get 10 of these hits. Unlike these flasks you can get this line modifier that says gain a percentage of charges per second. This flask does not have that line because it's a unique flask. You can only gain charges on this flask by hitting monsters and killing monsters in the map. So if you're using it on a boss, you have 10 chances basically, or 7 chances, sorry, to be able to you can spam it 7 times, so you can lose your mana 7 times, which hopefully by that point you have killed the boss and it's not even an issue and you don't even have to hit it 1 or 2 times at best. So that kind of goes over the gear. The amulet I already showed you. It has spirit, it has rarity, all attributes, more intelligence, because in this particular build you're stacking intelligence more than any of the stats. You want your stats to basically be a 3-2-1 and as far as like the amounts would go. So you want 3 times as much, 2 times as much, and then roughly a 1 time as much if you can afford it. Astramentus would make this a little bit more viable for the full damage bonus, because I just can't get as much strength as I want because my skill tree is basically based on intelligence, and we'll get to that in just a second. And then I also allocated insightfulness. A lot of people go with blurred motion or spaghettification. I wanted insightfulness because of what its mana regeneration rate. So once again, your life force, because you don't have any health regen, your life force is coming back faster because you have more mana rate, and I have more 6% flat intelligence gain, which is huge. And then the energy shield, which for this build, because I'm not running Grim Feast and I'm not really focusing on energy shield is kind of just it's an additional 322 damage that I can run over burnt ground and not take mana damage at that point. So I mean it's there for a reason, but it's not a huge chunk. So getting 18% more of your energy shield, where it's kind of you're starved for energy shield with the way the build is set up, it's a good way for you to get a little bit of energy shield. So now to get into like the passive skill tree, and you know, some guides I've watched myself when I was leveling this character, they said don't go with this particular tree setup from level 1. Well, I basically said screw you, I'm going with that particular setup because I don't want to reallocate my attributes later on. And you can run the Pillar of Caged God from literally level 1 with your character build. This weapon alone in your hands, just leveling, will walk you through the campaign. Like, it was a breeze. There was nothing that slowed me down. I also leveled a Spark Sorceress into the 93-ish range. She had so much more trouble getting through the campaign than this character did. She had at least 3 times as many deaths as this character did. This character's still in like the 50 death range, whereas she is in the plus 100 death range right now. And this character's higher level. He's done all of the harder content that she has not done, because her build is completely pivotal on certain pieces of gear that make the Spark Sorceress work well, at least from my experience of what I've seen. Whereas just the Pillar of Caged God, whether it's 12% or the regular weapon, the 10% one to your 5 strength, just the weapon alone was enough to destroy all the bosses in the campaign without like second thought. I didn't need to spam health potions, nothing. It was an absolute breeze. So because I noticed that from like literally level 1 through like level 5, I said to myself, I am going to just go with the skill tree that will become my in-game skill tree. So I pathed the exact path that you're seeing here. I come down this route. All of these nodes through here are strength, because I'm not getting strength in a whole lot of places. And then once I hit this point of the tree and up, I started going into, I put 2 points into dexterity here. But for the most part, from this node all the way around the entire skill tree, it's all intelligence. There's a dex there, but you get what I'm saying. For the most part, everything I have stacked up to this point has been intelligence. And from level 1 all the way to the Mind Over Matter was where I pathed immediately. I went down here, snagged all of these jewel socket nodes, because you're a stat stacker, so each one of these jewel nodes that you get, you're going to want certain stats on them. Like this particular jewel is an extremely important stat. It has recovered 2% of mana on kill. You do need to recover mana on kill, because you cannot rely on just your mana regeneration alone. So for self-sustaining in maps, because it's your health pool, and granted, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but that stat isn't as necessary until you path all the way up and around and get Mind Over Matter. But once you do get to this point where you get Mind Over Matter, it is instrumental to have that jewel with that stat line on there. 2% is minimum. Some people I've seen play with 4%. I don't need 4%. I don't know why you would spend another jewel socket on a mana stat when you don't need it. I have tested it. It's not necessary. I ended up selling my extra jewel that had more percent on it, because I wanted stuff like quarterstaff speed or freeze duration, freeze threshold, lightning damage. Like, there are so many things. Like this particular jewel I'm looking at has 5% increased mana leached. Well, you're leeching mana when you're killing a monster. So if you have that on a green stat, instead of spending the extra on a blue sapphire to get you that mana on kill, you're going to get more per kill if you have something like that. And it benefits you. It benefits you because you also are getting lightning damage. You're getting damage with quarterstabs. You're taking other nodes on your jewels that help your build more than any sapphire build is going to do. Prism of Belief, this was a 50 divine purchase just a couple of days ago. That is not necessary for the build. That is late game. When you get to the end of the game, then if you want to spend a little bit more money, you end up going with something like this diamond. As you see, it says 3 to all Tempest Flurry skills, so it will raise your Tempest Flurry by at least 3 levels. So that's another jewel that I have it's important, but it's not necessary. It just increases your damage by a crap ton. Every single jewel that you do put into your tree needs to be corrupted. I personally haven't corrupted this one because I didn't want to lose my mana on kill. So it's the only jewel I have that's not corrupted. You're looking for cold damage, shock damage, lightning damage, freeze buildup, quarterstaff speed, quarterstaff damage, herald damage. Any of those sorts of stats on your jewels are going to be fairly good. And granted, all of these jewels could be upgraded to a higher tier. Like if this had 10 to dexterity instead of 6, it would be better. But then we're talking like a build that's going to be into the mirror grade as far as like how much it's going to cost to assemble and put it together. And I don't have that kind of currency to be doing that. But to go back to the beginning of the jewels so I don't skip around here. At the very first node, I put my Against the Darkness. You do need to find or get an Against the Darkness. What you put on it is going to be dependent on what your build needs. My build needs chaos resistance. Fire res and chaos res I was low on, so for me to avoid having to put it on my rings or on my boots or my amulet, I was able to get a decent chunk of it right here, and it is worth it to go with the +3. If I could have got the +4 to fire, that would have been awesome, but I ended up getting a 3-3, 3 chaos, 3 fire. And what that's going to do is all of these nodes down here, if you see when I highlight them, that's going to give me not just all attributes, it's going to give me 3 fire, 3 chaos, 3 fire, 3 chaos, 3 fire, 3 chaos. So all of these are giving you more chaos res and more fire res. I have polymath, 10% increased attributes because I'm a stat stacker. I have jack of all trades, so the 20 or 2% increased damage per 5 of my lowest attribute. So my strength being my lowest attribute, that is 2% increased damage per 308. If I could get that to 85, that'd be a little bit. I'd get one more chunk out of this particular stat line, but it's a huge pickup. So you need to grab all of these, and it's just a good spot to put against the darkness, because it's the one spot on the skill tree where you have a clump of skills all in one spot. The rest of the skill tree is kind of stretched out. I avoided going into this crit tree right here to pick up Tainted Strike. I avoided until I was a little higher level. And I'm not kidding, I literally pathed all the way up here and around and into Mind Over Matter before I started filling out some of these other trees that you can see right here. Because Mind Over Matter was that important. Because you're dealing with the health pool that you're quite squishy. You're like 2,000 to 3,000 hit points depending on where your character's sitting with health, and depending on how much strength you have, it's going to really determine how much health life force you have. So if the sooner that you can get to Mind Over Matter, the sooner you are going to have double the health pool. So I now in effect roughly have a 7,000 hit point pool if you count my life, my energy shield, and my mana that I have stacked at 3661. So I can basically take a hit of 7,000 damage, estimated hit. It easily doubles your life pool, because then now you're using your mana pool as a life pool. So it all kind of works in combination. Once you get the life pool up, or you get to Mind Over Matter and you start utilizing this, it is absolutely pivotal and instrumental that you have the Melting Maelstrom Mana Flask, so that when you do take a big hit from a monster, whether it's a monster or rare or a boss, you can instantly get your mana back. So it's back to full health. Boom, you're good to go. But once you do get to Mind Over Matter, now you can worry about doing more damage, because as a Gemling Stat stacker, you're already doing so much damage, and it's probably going to get tuned back in the next league, Dawn of the Hunt. But as it sits, you are doing so much damage that these extra trees that you're going into, there's something that you can afford to wait till later game to do. It's not something that you have to do at the very beginning, like, level to here, like level 15, 20, and then you have to put these points in to get Tainted Strike, which is all critical nodes. They're a huge damage increase, but they're not necessary to get to that. So you can wait till you're like in your 50s or 60s level-wise before you can start filling out some of these trees. And it's very important. A lot of people in this game that I've noticed, they forget that they have weapon slot 1, weapon slot 2 skills, and it's imperative that you're using these. And I know I've personally watched some videos on people explaining how they work or how they don't work. Well, it's pretty simple once you have understood or started using how they work. But let's say, for example, I was to level up and I hit level 97, it would give me a skill point right here. I can take that skill point and I can put it into my tree, and it's a white line. The white lines are the skill trees that are usable for both weapon sets, weapon set 1, weapon set 2. Whereas, as you can see, there's a green line here, there's a red line here. It's harder to see, but it is red. It's kind of orangish colored looking instead of just the white looking effect. Same thing with this skill tree. It's all red. This thing is janky. This one is kind of reddish in tone compared to some of these other ones. And you can see this one's green. This one's green. Well, there's a big reason for that. So you can, in essence, get 2 levels for the price of 1. There are 2 skill points on your skill tree for the price of 1. So when you reach a level and you have an extra skill point, you click this that you want to allocate it to weapon set 1, and then you put it somewhere. As soon as you hit apply, it's going to use, or it's going to give you basically a point to put into weapon set number 2. So the object is to use all 24 of your points. I still have 2 points available on build 1 and 2 because I personally don't think I'm going to need them for my build. But to show you what I mean, I will swap weapons, and you will see that these green trees on my second weapon set, they are now active. So this skill tree down here is active, which is a mark skill tree. It's increasing my mark effects, mark of death. I have this guy here, which is quick exchange, so that when you are swapped to your second weapon set, your 50% speed is faster to swap back to your main set, which is where all of your damage is going to be done. This skill tree, where Falcon Dive or Falcon Technique is, it's turned off because my second set I have designed to apply curse to a boss. So I'm running 2 Pillar of the Cage Gods. You can see here I've got Pillar of Cage God 2, Pillar of Cage God 1. Pillar of Cage God 2 I'm running with 3 sockets instead of 2 sockets. The stat lines right here, they don't really matter, like at all. The only thing that matters is what you're putting into it. So you want the Soul Core of Topotante because of what it's doing. It increases the elemental threshold against the monsters. Attack with this weapon, penetrate 45 elemental resistances. So when I charge in with Hand of Chayula, because Hand of Chayula is set to weapon set 2, I will dash into the target. I am going to hit them with a freezing mark. I'm going to hit them with a Vaultic mark. I'm going to hit them with Conductivity Curse, and I have Heightened Curse in there just to increase what these are doing. It will then apply the curse to the mob, and I only use this on bosses, by the way. I don't use this on normal mobs because it's not necessary. And then as soon as I switch back, which let me go over these trees real quick and then I'll show you. I also have these skills right here on weapon set 2. I have these nodes here, which are curse nodes, curse duration. These are all set to weapon set 2. So when I dash in with Hand of Chayula, I am applying curses at a better rate. And then I have these nodes attached to weapon set 2, which are also curse duration and increased curse ability. So if I attack with Tempest Flurry, my staff changes, I go back to my regular stats, and all the stuff that's my main damage tree turns on. All these curse ones turn off, and that's how you use your weapon set 1, weapon set 2. So I have all of the red ones that you see, which these are all standard points. I do have Falcon Dive because there's your accuracy rating that I was talking about earlier. You increase your attack speed per accuracy rating. So if you have a ton of accuracy rating, like I do on my ring that I was explaining, Falcon Dive allows you to take advantage of that. So now your attack speed is going to shoot up, your damage is going to shoot up, whereas a lot of people completely negate the fact that you can gain a ton of damage from accuracy rating. I realize you can use it, so I have it implemented in my rings. So, and the damage difference between this ring versus not is astounding. If you look at my Tempest Flurry, it's sitting at 360,000 damage. If I take that ring off, it drops to 219,000. And that's not just the strength and dexterity that's on the ring, because it's only 26 strength and 29 dexterity. That is coming from the majority of that accuracy rating. And obviously I have a good fire roll on there. The fire and the lightning rolls are both nice, good to have. But a huge chunk of that damage, because I have a ton of rings. I mean, I literally looked through like 100 of my own rings that I had been saving for a high level. And I was testing, putting in, picking and putting in, testing which ones I wanted to use in the build myself. This emerald ring that had the accuracy rating was the biggest increase in damage that I could find. Like this ring that has 37 and 39 on it for strength and int, which is my damage for my stat trees, it's not as big of a loss. It's not as big of a gain. 247 to 360, 219 to 360. So this thing adds a ton of damage. Assuming that you went into Falcon Dive. So you're gaining your accuracy rating, huge increase in speed of attack. That's all standard. I don't have that turned to a second or a first tree. That's just standard. I'm currently going into this tree right here. I would like to get to Heartstopper before the end of League, which I'm about halfway to 97. It'd give me here, and the 98 will give me this. An additional 10% or 10 int and 25% increased crit hit chance. That's a big node. I do want to get there, but whether I do or not, I don't know. Like I said, most of the content that I've played is destroyed by the time I get to it anyway. So by having it, it's just going to be another section of just overkill. So at this node up here, let's see, did I do the jewels? I didn't do these jewels yet. That jewel is lightning, evasion rating, attack speed, and then mana recovery from flasks, which the mana recovery from flasks is a deadline. If I find a better jewel, I can replace this because it wasn't corrupted with strength or intelligence, or maybe a resistance if you need a resistance. This one I've already shown you is the cold damage, the 2% mana on kill, which is the important line, is that mana on kill line. That's the one you want. Not want, you need. This one has 9 dexterity, 14 to lightning damage, critical hit for chance to hit, and increased inflict ailments, which I'm doing lightning and I'm doing cold damage. So any ailment infliction that you get is beneficial. It's very beneficial actually. And so all 5 of these lines on this jewel are really big for the build. The last socket that I came down and I picked up, more dexterity, attack speed with, or attack damage with quarterstaves, shock duration, projectile damage, which a lot of people think projectile damage in an emerald is going to be just for the bow users. That is not the case if you are using charged staff. If you're using charged staff, your weapon in essence turns into a projectile. So projectile damage with quarterstaves is a viable thing, and then it has freeze buildup on the quarterstaff. These nodes right here are mark nodes. Those are activated when I apply my marks. So when I go into weapon set 2, these turn on, these turn off. And when these turn on, that makes the Vaultic mark, the freezing mark, last longer and have a quicker cast speed, basically. These guys, the Falcon technique, increased attack speed per dexterity. The only time I'm attacking is when I'm using Tempest Flurry, so I have this whole tree dedicated to weapon set 1. This tree right here going up into enhanced reflexes is a constant, whether I'm in weapon set 1 or 2. I need this, I get the extra evasion and the extra dexterity right here that you get going up into there. Moving on, the bow tree, the bow staff tree. I only have these 3 points put into the bow tree to get martial artistry. It's really all you need. I've seen some people use every single one of these skills in this tree. It is not necessary. I mean, you can, to each their own, they can do what they want. But this is my build. It's the one I've been currently rocking. And moving on, move up here to this node. I have cold resistance because I needed it. Otherwise, I would go for like int or dexterity, possibly even another strength jewel if I could have gotten it. Lightning damage, damage with quarterstaves, speed with quarterstaves, and chance to poison on hit. Which the poison is the one line on this jewel that's just kind of, it's not really my forte. Yes, when I'm fighting a boss, you instantly see on their debuffs that they get poisoned. That it's going to do some chaos damage to them. But it's not really doing a whole lot because I'm not spec'd into poison damage. And this particular tree, this is a lifeline. Like, you need this tree set up. It's going to give you power charges, and it increases your power charges by 2. You want this tree. This tree goes hand in hand with resonance, which is over here. You need both of these trees to make charged staff work the way that it effectively would work. So you path down into here and up into this to get the jewel socket, which the jewel socket is once again It's actually one of the rare blue ones that I have. Most of my jewels are emeralds, not sapphires. But this is mana regeneration rate, freeze buildup, because I like the monsters to freeze and blow up almost nearly immediately. Damage penetration of cold resistance, and some magnitude of damage elements again, because it makes stuff go boom. Resonance, on the other hand, when you path over to here, resonance turns all of your frenzy charges into endurance charges. And it's a vital thing, because your build can't use frenzy charges. But your build does use power charges, not endurance charges. I've been saying it wrong. Power charges. Your build does not use frenzy charges or endurance charges. It uses power charges. You gain power charges by running combat frenzy in your abilities. It requires 30 spirit, but as soon as you start running this, when you freeze an enemy or electrocute an enemy, freeze or electrocute or pin, so anytime you're doing something to an enemy, you have that chance of gaining a power charge. Sorry, I have to take care of this real quick. Someone wants to buy something. $20 chaos for a green jewel. Can't you see I'm making a video, guy? 20 chaos. I lowered my prices considerably because it's late league. Alright, back to where I was at. So your combat frenzy, like I said, is going to generate you frenzy charges. Because as of right now, there isn't an endurance charge or a power charge skill. At least to my knowledge, there wasn't one. So you have to convert them with resonance on your skill tree. So you gain frenzy charges here, and then your frenzy charges get converted into power charges. Your power charges are increased by overflowing power, and power charges are how you are turning on your charged staff. Charged staff, as it says, consumes all power charges to infuse your quarterstaff with electricity. Which, most monk builds, most people playing monks or gemlings probably already are utilizing this particular ability, but that's how you turn it on, is you have to have the power charges in order to even get this thing to run. Otherwise it just does not turn on. So this tree is a must. I have it set to both weapon sets. Moving on, this particular tree, this V, I eventually would have liked to have gotten down into Deadly Force, but I am going to simply run out of levels. I only have 4 levels to go. 2 skill points are already spoken for. The other 2 skill points could technically go here and here, but I won't have enough to get to Deadly Force. I'd have to lose something somewhere else in order to get to that. So I may end up not going that route at all. But those are active only when I am in my Tempest Flurry staff. So I'll just show you in detail, because I have an MTX on my primary staff. It's got that green with the fire. My second weapon set, it does not have that. It's just this. My second weapon set also has blink attached to it. It's another thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, is that when you are setting up weapon sets, you click this button here, you can click and toggle down here which one you want it to be active for. Well, because blink requires spirit is kind of a hard thing to come by with these builds. You have to specifically spec in to get in your spirit. Otherwise, you won't have enough to run your heralds, your charged staff, or your combat frenzy, not your charged staff, combat frenzy, or your wind dancer, which I haven't even gotten into. But Hand of Chayula is the delivery system. So I switched to my second weapon with using a Hand of Chayula attack, which would normally dart me to the boss. But if I'm just running around a map and I wanted to be able to blink with blink, you turn on the second weapon set and you can blink around. So you have blink. And as soon as you go back to your main attack, the Tempest Flurry, you swap over and you're back into the roll mode. If you watch my spirit bar, I have 3 spirit left over with Tempest Flurry With the blink setup, I have 23 still left over, and I have blink attached. The biggest difference is if you watch up here, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, and Wind Dancer are active. When I swap over, Herald of Thunder goes away. I still have Herald of Ice active, but Herald of Thunder disappears. It's not necessary because as soon as you hit the boss, you're switching back to where you have Herald of Thunder. So it's a win-win, really. You don't have to lose anything by having two weapon setups. So Blink is inactive when I'm on normal attack mode. Blink is active when I'm on second attack mode. Hand of Chayula is the delivery, like I was saying, to get to the second attack node. Because you cannot put Blink on your bar down here and have it activate. At least I wasn't able to do it. The only way I was able to get Blink to work was to have it set to a specific weapon set. It gets set to weapon slot 2, so it'll work now, but you have to be on a different weapon set with the spirit that it's going to require. And it's as quick as like a simple button hit. This is also another one of the reasons why I explained at the very beginning why I took Quick Change Act. So when I dart into the monster with Hand of Chayula, I dash to him with hand, I applied the curses and the marks. As soon as I attack back, I'm 50% faster on the weapon slot to get after the boss with Tempest Flurry. And you have like, I don't know, 15 to 20 seconds with those curses on the boss, so you should, in theory, have the boss killed. I never need to apply Hand of Chayula more than once. So it's kind of once again, it's a win-win. Moving back on, I have this weapon set, which is critical. All these extra weapon sets are for my attack damage, the red ones. So the way I set mine up is weapon set 2 was for curse application and or defenses, mainly curse application. And my weapon set 1 that I'm actively running throughout most of the maps I'm killing, it's all of the attack nodes that you would normally want to put into your build, which if you don't utilize weapon set 1, weapon set 2, you're losing out on one or the other. Like, I could take all of these off and just use your standard skill points to use and put these in, but then all of the green trees that are going to make the curses last longer, the marks last more effectively, the marks here lasting more effectively, and these curse nodes up here more effectively to deliver your curse, they're all going to be a moot point because you don't have those skill points. I have 22 skill points used right now just for curse delivery, and then I have 22 skill points used for critical and attack delivery. So it's really important that you use and utilize both of the weapon sets. My main vehicle of destruction is lightning. This entire skill tree, all the way up to pure power, it's active only when I'm using Tempest Flurry. So you get that extra huge chunk, which this in combination with Hawa, your gloves, and that's why we stack intel, because the Hawas, which I didn't really go over, but if you read the stat of the Hawas, you're gaining 1 to 10 lightning damage per 10 intelligence. So the more you stack intelligence, the more damage you're going to be doing with lightning, and then you pair that with pure power, 2% increased lightning damage per intelligence. You're doing a lot of lightning damage at that point. And I at one point in my build, I was up into this tree where I had lightning rod leveling. If you do run into an issue where you can't get enough damage on something before you get all the way up around the tree, you can put a few points into lightning rod because it's a huge increase of your damage for your lightning damage, but you'll eventually get rid of it and pull it out for some of these other trees. You don't really need it though. At least I don't think you need it. Pathing up a little bit further, we went over this jewel socket, which is another blue one. We went over this one, which is cold res quarterstaves. Another blue one up here, I have 9 strength, mana regeneration rate again, which like I've explained, mana regeneration is really key, especially for burning ground maps. If you want to be able to run every map in the game, you need to have a way to regen your man quick when you're mind over matter. And you cannot just rely on your melting maelstrom flask. You can for a big chunk of it, but having that extra mana coming back at all times It allows you to run any of the maps in the game. This one, unlike the other blue jewel that I have down there, this one is recover 1% of life on kill. This is another stat that I put into my build because I wanted some life leech, because once again, I do not want to rely on spamming my flasks when I'm in the middle of a fight. So if you've watched any of my maps, my health bar and my mana bar stay full, because every time I'm killing something, I'm gaining mana back and I'm gaining health back. So it also increases my curses, and it increases my elemental damage. So win-win on this jewel. It's a big jewel. Path up, we get ingenuity, so that we're getting that extra intelligence. Path over to this jewel, we got extra intelligence, lightning effect, quarterstaff damage, and mana leech, which I already went over that one. And I already went over this one that I just put in last week. This was an expensive purchase. I don't expect any new player or even someone that just doesn't have the economy to do it. This alone, right, if I checked it right now, it's probably going to be 60 to 100 divines for this jewel. I was lucky. I found one for 50 divines last week, and he actually had it for sale for 65, and I talked him down. So because it was late league, I was able to convince him that, hey man, if you want to sell it and you're going to get anything out of it, I'll pay you 50, but that's all I'm paying for it. So this is an expensive jewel, but it's going to increase your damage by quite a bit when you have that guy in there. So that is basically the premise of the tree, like I've explained it ad nauseum. Attack damage on weapon set 1, curse duration, curse damage on weapon set 2, unarmed ability, which it just seems to help. It gives you more evasion when you're in your second weapon set. Mark ability and mark ability, all on weapon set 2. Attack damage, attack damage, attack damage, attack damage, attack damage. Those are all on weapon set 1. And then weapon swap on weapon set 2. Constant attack damage, both weapon sets. Constant. This is actually a constant right here. This doesn't turn off. I'm pretty sure. Swap over. No, it does turn off. Okay, so those are weapon set 1, like I initially had said. So these are gone. These are gone when I swap over. These are gone. These are gone. And these are gone when I go to weapon set 2. And that's just to get me those points that I need to put into these other necessary nodes. As soon as I attack back with that, though, those that are unnecessary turn off, and the good ones, they turn on. The ones that increase your damage by an absolute god ton. Last thing I want to really go over are the jewels themselves, or the skills. Tempest Flurry, and I have seen over the last few months, I've seen so many different variations of what people run with these, with the build itself. And, you know, to each their own. I'm not saying that other people that are explaining what they have done is right or wrong. I'm just going to explain what I have done and how the map just explodes. Like, this is a way for the map to completely be easy for you to farm without any sort of damage. Tempest Flurry, I'm running Bullseye, so I have accuracy rating. I have Inspiration. I have Crescendo. I have Rage, so that I'm getting Rage on hit. And I have Martial Tempo, so that the attack speed is faster. It is a weapon level, or it's a skill level 24. 3 of them are coming from that jewel that I just showed you in the tree. The other one is a level 21 Tempest Flurry, corrupted to a level 21. Tempest Bell, I am running, and I only use Tempest Bell in like some ritual altars. I'll throw it down if I'm getting pinned in, and I always throw it down on a boss. I throw down 2 of them on a boss because it truly does increase the damage by a ton. So I have Concentrated Effect, I have Overabundance, so I can throw down 2 of them. I have Rage Forged, I have Primal Armament, and I have Execute. They are my my Tempest Bell. Charge Staff, which is the one that you're running around with all the time. This is your primary attack. Everyone thinks that it's Tempest Flurry, but Tempest Flurry is only what you're using until you get your power charges built up, and then you activate Charge Staff. Once you activate Charge Staff, this will become your primary means of delivery for death. because it's a projectile and it's shooting lightning out your staff. Instead of getting close to them, you can hit them from considerably further away. So I have persistence, I have lightning exposure, so I'm delivering lightning exposure there, coursing current, overcharge, and ambush. So I'm doing more damage immediately, I'm doing more shocks, and I'm doing more shocks, and I'm inflicting lightning exposure, making them easier to shock, so they're getting shocked from this attack. Wind Dancer is one of your only lines of defense in the build, which is, as long as this is active, you'll see this little skill up here. It has a +4. Once you get up max level, it'll go to a +4. You have more evasion until hit. So if I was in a map and I was to get hit, it would lower my evasion by probably about 20%. So it's quite important to have this 20% right there, 20% more, or 19% per stage. So I'm increased by almost 80% more evasion by having Wind Dancer on full. You can socket what you want in here because it's a constant effect, but I have blind support, so as long as it's running, I have blind, I have maim, I have culling strike, and I have elemental focus running at all times. The Herald setup, this one is definitely something that I've seen people do a ton of different setups on it, but I've found that this particular setup with the Heralds is by far the strongest. And some people might think it's counterintuitive to do what I'm about to show you, but it's not. You'll just have to trust me. It works extremely well. Conduction, this is Herald of Ice, by the way, so your supported skills have more chance to shock. Magnified effects, so it's a bigger freeze. Innervate, which is gain lightning damage on shocked enemies. This is on the freeze, not the electrical one. Lightning infusion, so you're basically flipping them. Your ice, you're going to do lightning stuff, and your thunder, your electric stuff, you're going to do ice stuff. And then you do put, because it's based on what you're using, I put Cold Mastery in there so that it's a higher level skill. Herald of Thunder on the flip side, Cold Infusion instead of Lightning Infusion. Or, Lightning Infusion right here. So you're running Cold Infusion. I'm running Long Shots so that it strikes down with its lightning further away from me. I'm using Electrocute so it cannot inflict shock. So this doesn't inflict shock, it just contributes to the build-up because this is applying the shock. Lightning Mastery to give it an extra level, and then Glaciation. Supported skills cause 50% more freeze build-up. So when they lightning down, it increases to, it works beautifully paired together. You get, everybody freezes and shocks at the same time, and typically the mobs just explode in ice. Combat Frenzy I've kind of already went over. Combat Frenzy I didn't go over its abilities, or its supports, but Combat Frenzy is how you're getting your power charges, gives you frenzy charges. Resonance on the skill tree gives you your power charge conversion. Profusion, supported skills have 50% more chance to gain an additional charge. Precision, you have accuracy rating while this skill is active, so this is always active. You're always getting more accurate accuracy rating, which I have already kind of ad nauseum on this one as well, explained that it's more beneficial to the build than people think. And then Clarity, because you want mana regeneration. So as long as you're running Combat Frenzy, which is all the time, you're getting more mana regeneration. Blink is only active during weapon slot 2, but I have Second Wind attached to Blink so that I can blink twice if I need to get out of dodge for some reason. And then Hand of Chayula, I've also explained that one. It's what I'm applying my curse with. It's only active on weapon set 2. And it's going to freezing mark the target, so I have target marked. I have Vaultic Mark, I have Conductivity, and I have Heightened Curse. So they're getting cursed, they're getting marked with both cold and ice, or ice and lightning, and they're taking more lightning damage when they get hit. That is the basic principle of the tree. Ascendancy I didn't go over. which it's pretty common what people are going to pick with the Gemling Legionnaire for their Ascendancy, but I definitely went the path to get up into enhanced effectiveness, because as you read, inherent bonuses from intelligence, strength, and dexterity are doubled. We are a stat stacker, so you're going to want this node. This node is kind of just, it's what you get into this one. So attributes required by your highest attribute, meaning that if a piece of armor requires 100 strength, then, or your skill gems, whatever skill gem it requires, it's going to be required by your highest attribute. It's a bonus, but it's not a very important stat line. This one, on the other hand, is quite nice, and even going up into this, implanted gems is nice, but I ended up going up here. But that's the level of all skill gems. So anything you're using is going to be a level higher if you go this route. 10% quality to all of your skills, which, as you can see looking at my skills, they're all a 20% quality, but I also am gaining an additional 14% quality from global modifiers, and that is coming from this tree node right here. So you're gaining an extra chunk of what the skill is going to do. You're also getting the other 4% right here and right here for your gem quality. So you get an additional 14%. Instead of 20, I'm rocking 34% jewels, which are gems, which is huge. And then advanced thaumaturgy, 30% less cost of skills, which if you want to spam Tempest Flurry or charge staff, you are going to want this skill, because it is going to cost 30% less to use. So you can just sit and spam and spam and spam and spam. And then as you read, skill gems have a 30% more attribute requirement. That is not a big deal when you have this kind of stats. So the attribute requirement and then the gem attribute requirement are moot points, because you have so many stats working for you in your favor. Movement speed, some people want movement speed boots, some people don't want movement speed boots, but movement speed boots I found to be quite useful, because you're not always attacking with your charge staff. Generally, when I'm going through a map, I am attacking with charge staff only, but there's times that you want to not get stuck on trees and or rocks or pits that are in the map, because this game seems to have a million things you can get your character stuck on. If you're walking around with your walk ability or run ability, you'll go around it, whereas if you're attacking with like that, you're attacking with your charge staff or your Tempest Flurry, your character will get stuck on it. And it doesn't let you walk around it very easy, whereas if you're just walking, you can easily maneuver. The game just kind of seamlessly moves around stuff. So having movement speed is kind of nice as well. Let's see, we went over gems, we've went over skills, we've went over the tree, we've went over the ascendancy. I think we've pretty much went over everything except for my my atlas tree. I haven't finished the atlas tree because I haven't played some of these bosses yet. I'm sitting on points to play them, but I haven't played them yet to get the Ascendancy points. But going up into Beyond Reality with this one, each one of these nodes makes your bosses a little bit harder. I don't have Esh finished yet. I have a couple points put into Esh. And I have the only one I really have finished is Ritual. Or the Breach, sorry, not Ritual. I would love to get my Ritual finished, because Ritual it could be lucrative, but I kind of started playing this character late because I put 400 plus hours into my Spark Sorceress before I even started playing this character. So I wasted at least half of early access playing a Spark Sorceress. I had fun with it, I'm not saying I wasted, but I spent a lot of time playing the Spark Sorceress and not playing the Gemling. So by the time I finally got to the Gemling, I just haven't had the time. And I also am busy. I'm playing multiple games at the same time. So I can't just play in-game content. My atlas itself is quite vast because I'm an explorer by nature. I love to explore. So I have a ton of maps finished because I like maps. I've always liked maps. Going back to Paths of Exile 1, I've prioritize doing maps over doing the in-game boss content, because in-game boss content you almost have to specialize a build in order to play him or them and to fight them and get them down, and it can be expensive trying to get to that point of the game. This character alone, just at a glance, if I had to take a guess of what he's worth, he's probably getting close to 300 to 400 divines as far as what I have invested in this character. And granted, that's not in league prices. That was regular prices a couple months ago for some of these items. Well, maybe not 300, but or not 400, but maybe 300 divines for what I have, because some of these pieces of gear were quite expensive. Like I said, that jewel that I was talking about, the Tempest Flurry jewel, just that gem alone was 400 divines. So let's see, we could do, I just want to do a level just to show you some of the basic principles of the game. Look at what we got. We got a 50% experience gain, which is the way I've been rolling all my towers, is to try to get as much experience gain as I can, because experience gain for me right now at level 96, it's the only way I'm leveling up, is to get this modifier on your maps. So I set all my towers up to where I'm getting a lot of experience. And that explosion right there, where you hit something once, the whole screen just gets vaporized. That is the Herald of Ash and the Herald of Thunder working, or Herald of Ash, sorry, Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder working in unison, the way that they're paired up and designed to be. So almost at all times you'll see that I have, let me just kill the corrupted guys real quick. I'll have 5 charge staff running, and I typically will I'll get 5 power charges going. So I have 10 charges active at one point. Like right now, I have 10 charges active running in favor of the build. It's fairly easy to sustain. It also allows you to walk around for basically a minute. I'll hit that, hit these guys, and I have another minute of charge staff. So I can walk around and I still have my charge staff active after I fight people. Let's see, can I get all 3 of those? I can get all 3 of those. I don't see any logbooks. Get those guys to refresh that. Refresh it again. Can't quite get over there, so we'll just go for these guys. And as you see, I get rage as soon as I start attacking. It's more important when you're on a boss, because in a map, stuff dies so fast that I typically I'm not even able to get to a 30 stack of rage, which I am at 15, 18, so it moves up and down. It's really hard to get to 30 unless you're fighting something for quite a while. Like there's 30. With 30 stacks, I would be extremely high in the damage, like it's dropping back down, but I've seen as high as like 600, almost 700,000 on the in-game tooltip. Nice. We want that.
Ooh,
on the in-game tooltip, and the in-game tooltip is not accurate. So in truth, I'm doing millions of damage with my character, and short of me putting the entire build into Path of Building, which I'm waiting for them to set it up. They still don't have it set up to where you can import your character from game. I mean, I could physically set it up to have, but to get the exact items I'm using would be kind of tough to build on the Path of Building. It would take quite a while to see what you're accurately doing. When I can tell I'm accurately doing millions of damage. That guy instantly dies. Pretty much everything instantly dies. So it's a very strong class. I've been impressed with it. I've had a lot of fun with it. I mean, it does get... I don't want to say it's monotonous, but it's you're only using one ability for the most part. You're using your charged staff. Everything else just kind of vaporizes and dies as soon as you touch them. Now, to go back to Wind Dancer, if I get hit by a mob, this is a rare, so it may not be the best mob to show you with. We'll let these guys hit me. Boom. So they hit me, I didn't attack. They hit me, my Wind Dancer resets. As soon as I get hit from Wind Dancer, it explodes, and it delivers a critical hit to those guys, which, if you were to, say, step away from your controls for just a split second, you had a monster patting around, he saw you, you could theoretically kill him and not even be sitting in front of your computer because of Wind Dancer being set up. So it's a very important thing to have in your build. Plus, like I said earlier, it's giving you a ton of evasion, so you don't get hit the majority of hits. And you can see movement speed. My movement speed is slow in comparison to running around with Charged Staff. Charged Staff is extremely fast. And also, keep an eye on my health bar and my mana bar. They do not move. I mean, my mana will go down if I'm not hitting anything, but as soon as I'm attacking something, it fills back up. My health bar, because of the way that I have my jewels set up, the health bar tends to stay at full at all times. The only thing I really see dropping is my energy shield. My energy shield goes up and down because I do take hits. It just isn't usually enough to hit the red or the blue. And that is a basic, that's a basic overview of my build that I've been playing this week. So, moving forward into Dawn of the Hunt, I don't know if this build is going to get nerfed outright. Hopefully they don't nerf the Gemling. Hopefully, if anything, they just retool and rework how Pillar of the Cage God and how Hands of Wisdom and Action work in pair, in unison. I hope that's what they do. I hope they don't just say, oh, the Gemling is too strong. Because if they did that, they'd have to do the same for the Sorceress, they'd have to do the same for the Monk. Because all of those classes are insanely powerful. The Infernalist Witch, insanely powerful. I think they probably redesigned the items before they do the characters. At least that's my guess. I could be wrong. But yeah, this was my character breakdown. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give me a like, maybe subscribe. I'll eventually be doing more characters as soon as Dawn of the Hunt comes out. I am likely going to be playing the Huntress and see if I can put together a build for the Huntress that is every bit as powerful as this character has been this league. Alright, thanks.